I heard this quote when I was younger. It's like successful people have a habit of doing the things failures don't like to do. And like if you bank up things of like stuff that you don't like doing, but like it's helpful for you, it's like that is gold.
And it's like the idea of stacking days, right?
Yeah.
I heard this quote from, I think it was like Chris Williamson maybe. It was like layers of paint that build a mountain.
Yeah.
And so every action that you do is like a small little like thin layer of paint, and you do that over like 5-10 years and you've got the whole mountain. That's success. That's the overnight success. Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. For those who are new to the show, my name is Keegan Hipgrave, and guys, if you haven't already, could I get you to jump over, hit that little like and subscribe button on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, whether it's Apple, YouTube, Spotify. It's a great way for us to grow the podcast, grow the platform, and just have some incredible conversations like I'm going to have today. In this episode, I'm joined by a professional NRL player for the Townsville Cowboys, Chad Townsend. How are you, brother? I knew I was going to stuff that intro up.
Nah, one take, mate. You're good now. You're a professional.
Mate, we're into it. Every time I roll into this, I always tell the boys, I was like, mate, I always stuff this up, so just give me a couple times. I did Connie Hurrell one time. Hey, you know Connie, obviously.
Yep.
Mate, took the piss out of me the whole time. Like, I'm like, we're crying, laughing, because I hadn't seen him in months and actually even a couple years. And, mate, he was that was fun as. Brother, how you travelling? Thanks for coming on.
Nah, thanks for having us. So I'm big fan of the pod. I've seen a couple episodes with a few of the boys. So, mate, yeah, I'm doing well and happy to be here.
Well, mate, also, thank you for letting us use a lot of your gear today.
We are, man. We're up in my hood in Townsville.
Yeah.
Obviously enjoy my podcasting as well. Brought some stuff up here, and the boys up here, Robbie at 537, have done a really good job at helping me out, producing some things here and there. But yeah, I'm familiar behind the mic, so I'm happy to be on this side today.
I was going to say, how are you feeling being on the other side?
Yeah, it's good. I haven't done too many where I've been interviewed, if I'm honest. I more like doing the interviewing, asking the questions, much like yourself, having some, cool conversations and things like that. So I'm looking forward to unpacking, today and a bit of my story, and probably sharing some few things that, about my life.
Mate, I'm super pumped to get into it. Before we kick off, like, why did you want to go down the podcasting route? Like, what was the attraction for it?
Yeah, I think, it would have been maybe 5 years ago now. I bought the equipment, and I love American sports, so I noticed a lot of those guys were doing podcasts and in season, and just having control of their own sort of content, and I really liked that. I just had it set up in my spare bedroom back at home, and bought some cameras and some microphones, and was just started interviewing my teammates. And the thing that I really liked about it was the stuff I'd speak to my teammates about, that stuff we wouldn't really talk about in the locker rooms, 100%. So just understanding them a bit more, who they are as people, but also, I guess the way that the media is now, having control of that content, and understanding that when I was asking the questions with my teammates, they were in a safe space with me, and I was never searching to try and put them on show or get a quote or a comment that would put them in danger. So I think having that control is important, and it was enjoyable.
It also allows you to go for a deeper level of conversation, and like you said, the boys trust you. Even in this environment, it's obviously a mental health and sport podcast, we're not out there to burn the boys, because sport is such a small world, man. We have conversations with crew of all different sports. We did a podcast with Braden Maynard, Brazzy. He's one of the captains or one of the leaders at Collingwood Magpies, who just won the grand final. And we did a podcast, I think maybe a month after they won the grand final. And for context, he did this sort of tackle on Angus Brayshaw, which actually ended up medically retiring him. And Brazzy came on and spoke about the whole incident, what happened. But it was just it was such a touchy subject at the time. He's Keegs, do you mind just taking that out? I was of course, mate. This is we're not in the industry to burn anyone, and to be honest, got a lot of love for the boys and girls that come on the potty. So that's that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to burn bridges, but also, like you said, you want it to be a safe space and the trust, and just know that you're coming from a good angle, and want to share a lot of their stories, and put them in a bit of light about their journey. So I think, like you said, there are some media out there who sort of thrive on those type of negative stories and negative headlines, and that's just the world we live in at this stage. But yeah, there's also a lot of positive out there too.
But 5 years is still super early to get into the game.
Yeah, I excuse me, I probably haven't been as consistent with it. I've done them here and there with sparingly in the off season or pre-season, or some throughout the season. But obviously, I live a pretty busy life with family and football, and
something we'll talk about today, mate.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But yeah, I've always liked to have that balance, and getting behind the mic and doing like 6 or 10 episodes here or there is something that I've done quite regular. I did last year once we got knocked out. Did all through the final series just with one of my mates up here from Triple M, Elliot. So we would sort of talk about the games and things like that. So yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoy it.
Do you get much pushback from the boys? Because I remember when I was at Bronx, like I think first came in just after under 20s. It could have even been under 20s. I think maybe like 2015, 2016, 2017. Geordie Kahu and Alex Glenn were really leaning into the vlog space with their GoPros, and I remember the boys would be giving them so much shit. And obviously, like, I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, but like, I'm not going to say anything. But they were in it early, and now, like, you look at what Geordie's done in his media career, like going overseas with Paddy Mills, and this is his life after footy. Like, did you get much shit from the boys?
Not. Oh, when I was probably younger, like when I first started vlogging with the camera. Maybe like 5 years ago, some of the boys used to put a bit of shit on me, but nothing serious.
Yeah.
As it's kind of evolved now, like I will speak to players after games, and like I'm not going to say names, but there's players in NRL teams who come up to me and say, "Man, I love the vlog," and that's just
so
like
cool, man.
It's so cool. And then like after games, like kids. I swear to God, kids talk to me more about YouTube and the vlog than they do about football.
Really?
So like that to me says like, that wave of that media, like times have changed, you know what I mean? So I've always been one that's kind of embraced social media and try to use it like in a positive, like I've only tried to look at it as a positive outlook, and I enjoy it as well.
But it is like you can actually do it for positive, like, and even like the people from the outside looking in, like we were talking about it before jumping on the pod today. It's like, there's so many people out there who want to know what's happening in your world, in other people's worlds, and it's fun. Like, it's a fun thing to see. Not only do you enjoy it, and it's a really great like depth conversation that you can have with other teammates, but like players, kids, I'm sure even mum and dads, like I'm sure they'd love to hear about this stuff.
Yeah, well, I think like I think back when I was like a kid, right, and I grew up, and obviously there was no such thing as social media, but you think of like a 10, 15-year-old, 12-year-old kid, like being able to go online and watch a couple of videos of his favourite player, or an NRL player who's like documenting their life and what they do away from football, and the time they put into preparation and recovery, and the teammates and what they do after a game, how they prepare for a game. So I think that's really positive. If you can leave a positive impact on kids these days, on social media, like that to me is, I think it's only good.
Is that top of mind for you, like the educational piece for young crew?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I've kind of found probably resonates the most with my audience, is like if I like put a video out that says like, how do I prepare for an NRL game? Like people are really interested in that. Gotcha. Or like, what do I do after an NRL game? Or, so it's very like, I guess you got to think about like what the audience, what they're after, and you think of my audience, obviously a lot of footy fans who want to see behind the scenes access to a football player that they don't see on like Fox League or Channel 9, so that's kind of the angle that, I definitely go from.
Has the content changed over the last 5 years?
100%. Yeah, I look back at some of my earlier ones.
Is it cringy?
Oh,
man.
It's so cringe. I just laugh. But I'm also very happy that I started doing it because like, not all the time, but in some episodes I've got my kids in the videos, and like my kids are growing up now like so quickly, and then like they're in the video and it's like, wow, like my daughter's like 3 there, or 2, and now she's like 6, and so to have that stuff on video, and then my kids, like sometimes they'll want to watch a vlog and just see themselves on the TV, and I'm like, that's you, and they're like, nah, that's like the younger sister, or they think it's the baby. So that's really cool to have those memories. But it's definitely changed, I think, with who I am and what I like to do now, but also finding out like what works. Like I'd have hundreds of videos online on YouTube, and I found out by doing that, I've found out what doesn't work and what works. And I think that's what you see from people. Like if you want to find out what you like and what works, you need to just keep doing things.
Keep trying it out. And then you find out like what works. So that's, definitely been a bit of a lesson. Because you moved into like, I see a lot of golf content as well. And to be honest, like you've been doing it for 5 years. I didn't know how much content you were doing until the Leaders in League conference that we did maybe like start of this year, because I saw you rolling around with the camera and I was like, oh, what are you doing? And then like obviously with RLPA and we did some collaboration on some content. And I was like, that's so cool, but it just shows like consistency. Like you're doing it over for so long, and obviously it's grown so much in that last time, but you got to stay with it.
You got to stay consistent. You got to learn from the things that work and the things that don't, but also like your audience. And you can't think about it like, especially with a vlog, you can't think about it like what's in it for me. Like you have to provide, I've found like I have to provide value for the audience, like because the audience, they only want to watch what they want to watch. So you have to kind of put yourself in their shoes and think about what they want to like. And then like I always see things as like you can't blame the algorithm, like change the word algorithm to audience. If you don't get views, it's because your audience doesn't like it. So I've never done it for views or subscribers, but also like from the moment I picked up a camera, I was like, I'm in this for the long haul. Like, I'm not concerned about views and I'm not concerned about followers or subscribers. I enjoy this and it makes me happy. It's a creative outlook for myself and I enjoy doing it. So, you know, that's never been a worry of mine. It's just, you know, let's just do it for the long term and then just see what happens.
I love that piece about doing it in for the long, like being a part of it for the long haul. Because I was the same. I was just like, everything I want to be doing now, I want to be doing for like minimum the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like at least, so like that's why I was super specific or super like conscious of what I wanted to start. Because I was like, anything I want to put my mind to, I want to put 100% in. Like the podcast, like I want to do this podcast for the next 10 years, similar to yourself. Like I want to learn more about psychology and mental health. So how do we like normalize these conversations and how do we learn and give like practical steps to actually help people. Like I love what you said about the value, value add. Like the best conversations that we've had on this platform is from boys and girls who like are open and vulnerable about their own experiences, but they also provide like tools and strategies of what actually helped them. Yeah,
I think that's cool. Like, because, you know, I've always been one or someone who, you know, you take, you hear bits and things throughout your life and you're like, you know, you take little bits of information from different sources and then you compile it into like what works for you. Because it's not like what works for some doesn't work for others. But then, you know, I guess over the course of like my life and my career as well, like, you know, you get advice from coaches and things like that and my game and whatever it is. But then it's like you take that on board and you mold it into like who you are and what you can do with that information as well. So,
Matt, I am really keen to talk about like your career and all the roller coaster of professional sport because it is, mate. Like 14 years in, 250 plus games. It's super impressive, and I do want to pick your brain about that. But before we do that, kind of want to know what it was like growing up because you grew up in Sydney. Like, what was it like?
Yeah, man. Growing up, I grew up in Sydney in the Southern Shire, so about 15 minutes from Cronulla, a little suburb called Yarwara. Started playing football when I was 5 years old. A mate of mine at school asked me if I would come down and join the team. They needed numbers, and that decision turned out to be like life-altering decision.
Full sliding door,
completely. Because not only did it give me a chance to fall in love with rugby league, but also I met my best mates that I've still got today. Like the boys I started playing footy with when I was 5 years old are still my best mates today, and I'm so lucky to be able to say that. Like they were my best man, all my groomsmen at my wedding. We talk like all the time. Just rang one of them on the way here actually. So and the club I spoke about, Yarwara Tigers, it was only a small junior club, you know, and they just gave me the chance to fall in love with the game, and I did. I fell in love with rugby league as a young kid. I just loved hanging out with my mates. The suburb Yarwara is very small. Only has a primary school, so we went to Engadine High School, the next suburb, and life was good. Life was very simple in the Shire. It's a very kind of, you know, it's obviously on the southern side of Sydney, but I guess people from the Shire don't necessarily leave the Shire.
Mate, it's a little bubble, man. I've done a few like little trips. Actually, almost signed with the Sharks, back in like 2019 or 2020. Yeah. I went down there, and because obviously I'm from the Gold Coast, like love the beach. They took me to like I think one of the main hubs, and surf was pumping. It was like a sheet of glass and beautiful coffee, and I was like, this actually could be all right, man. So it's easy to get stuck.
And that's why players like that come to the Sharks, like they love it. The lifestyle, the beaches, and that's the Southern Shire. Like it's a great place for families. All my friends and family are still there. So I had a really good upbringing or childhood. You know, growing up, I got one brother who's he's a landscaper and irrigation. Yeah, so, I guess when I look back on my childhood, I've got a lot of fond memories with mates growing up.
Did you have a lot of success growing up? Like, were you always like the talented player, or was it kind of a grind?
Yeah, I was one of in our footy team. Our team, we were pretty lucky with the fact that we won 7 comps when I was a kid. Yeah. We were always there in the grand final. So we had a pretty successful side. Myself and Stuart Mills, who's one of my best mates, he played NRL as well out of that team. Also had a couple others who went on to play like under 20s and things like that as well. So yeah, we had some success, but then I guess I was never like, the next big thing or anything like that. Like I never had like massive raps on me or anything, but one thing I did have was a very strong work ethic.
Yeah.
And I got that from my old man. Like growing up, I used to see him wake up. Like he would be up before I was up. He'd be gone. He'd do long days, long hours. He worked his tail off just to provide for us as a family. So he set the tone with regards to work ethic, and I think I got that off him. And that's one thing I'll try and teach my kids. I think is that like I'm happy to say that probably I don't want to talk myself up, but everything I've got like I've earned, and like I've had to work for it. So it's I guess that's probably a little satisfying too, if I'm honest.
I think about that all the time, like the traits that you get from your parents and like being able to actually see that. Like, and I said this on Roops, like we did a podcast with Ruben last night, Ruben Cotter, and the conversation was around one of these guys, his name's Paul Carter. I'm pretty sure he's an NBA player. He's on the Player Association over there. He did a podcast with, I think, Rich Roll. And what he was talking about is that he wants his kids to be able to see him work hard and all the traits, and obviously be a good person and everything, the resilience piece and everything that comes with it. But he brings his kids into training because obviously he's in the limelight. Everyone knows who he is. Even his kids are getting a bit older now. They're in their teens, and everyone's like, oh, like your dad's just he's just a famous like basketball player. Like he just gets everything he's got. Yep. Whereas like, no, he's worked for so long to get to where he is today, and all like the roller coaster, the speed bumps, the hurdles. It's like he wants his kids to be able to see that, and then also how he reacts, because that stuff will just be passed down. Yeah,
I love that, and what you just said like really resonated with me with seeing like having the kids see me work hard, because when I was at Cronulla, I spent 9 seasons at the Sharks, and about 7 or 8 of those with Luke Lewis, and we played on the right side of the field together. He was my back rower. He used to make all my tackles.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for covering for me.
But he was like a mentor to me with regards to how he lived his life, the decisions he made about his family, his finances, and his future. And he said to me, I want my kids to see me work hard. And this was like, he had kids, but this was before I had kids. And I was like, man, I probably didn't really understand it until a couple of years later when I started to have kids, and I was like, yeah, like that hits, man. Yeah. I want my kids to see me get up, work hard, and know that like if you want something, like you've got to put the work in.
What do you think changed when you had kids? Because you know how people talk about that one thing is like, oh, having kids will change your life and it'll change your perspective, and it's like everything is about them now. What do you think changed when you had kids?
I think like nothing else really matters, with regards to like when I was younger and as a player, like if I had a poor game or we lost, like, man, I was the worst person to be around. And like, that was hard for me, like looking back on now, especially like when I lived in New Zealand, I played for the Warriors for 2 years, and we didn't have kids then. And if I played a poor game, like got down and was hard to talk to and put so much pressure on myself. And I think as you get older, you have kids, like, once I walk in the door, like the kids don't really care if you win or lose, you know what I mean? So I think having that perspective of like life, and what I mean is like what's actually important. So walking in the door, like leave your problems at the door, like leave that mindset at the door with regards to what's happening there, and just switch, like compartmentalize into like being dad. And then like my kids will love me regardless if we win or lose. If I miss the kick to win the game or I hit the kick to win the game, you know what I mean? I'm still dad, and I think understanding that is probably the biggest thing.
It's kind of like not like identifying or like tying your football into your own identity, hey? And it's almost like you could probably do that before having kids. Like obviously it takes kids to, as like a little switch, but I wonder, like I had this exact conversation with Paddy Carrigan when he came on at end of last year, especially when they got wooden spoon and they got pumped. And like, obviously Brisbane is such a footy central town, kind of like Townsville, where it's just like they threw like hundreds of wooden spoons on the field when they lost. And he was going through a big thing with his auntie or his grandma and some family issues. And he put so much pressure on the fact of like winning and losing a game. Yeah. Similar to yourself, exactly what you said. Like when he lost, he'd feel like so bad. He feel like he couldn't go out in public. And he did a lot of work with a guy called Ben Crow. Around like identity and not saying like I'm like Paddy Carrigan, not Paddy Carrigan, a football player.
Yeah, I love that, and that's something again that hits really hard to me because, you know, I love football like just as much as the next person. You know what I mean? I've played football since I was 5. Like I live and breathe football. I watch every game every weekend, but in saying that as well, like I am also very interested in other things.
Yes.
And I'm not afraid to like share those things and speak about them and do them. Like, because at the end of the day, I'm just being myself. Yep. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I think having the ability to sort of like, you know, compartmentalize my life and balance as well. I think as I've gotten older through my career, you understand that balance is so important, like especially through football and family and interests outside of football and hobbies, and it might be golf or whatever it is. All that stuff adds to me playing the best football I've found, you know, and having that balance. So I'd say that's probably a big one for young players to probably learn, is that balance of like football and then like life as well. That
was probably the biggest question that I wanted to ask today. Is like balance, like how you do it, because mate, I get it. I know what it's like playing professional footy. Like it's a hard slog. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment physically, but also more so mentally. Yeah. You've got your family. You've got a number of kids. you got to manage it, but then you've also got your outside interests with like all the content that you're putting out with the podcast. Like, how do you manage that? And I'm talking from a practical point of view.
Yeah, I think like organisation and routine is a big one. My wife, you know, I would be nothing without her support, to be honest. She's been huge for me throughout my career. And, you know, at times where I, you know, and you probably resonate with this, like you're selfish. Like can be selfish, especially as an athlete, like, which is hard to probably talk about because, especially when you're like kids, you know, it's like sometimes I've got to put myself first where, you know, some things with regards to work are very important, and that selfish aspect I think most athletes will be aware of. But I also think, like I said, that routine and structure with, like, my kids are very routine and structure. We've raised them to be like, you know, dinner time is at this time, showers at this time, bedtime, book, you know, routine. And that's probably because like I am like that.
It's got to be super healthy for the kids as well.
It is. It's only been positive for us. You know, we've been very, very strict on it. And some people, you know, turn up and like, why do you do that? And I'm like, well, this is like just this is what we do. Like, it's not like you don't have to do it. But we found it's what works for us. And I think, you know, like I said, having a supportive wife with regards to the help that she does, but also, you know, like I said, compartmentalizing and planning, and, you know, we've got a calendar that we're like, we sort of fill in together, and having that balance, but also like making sure that like my football preparation never wavers. That is like, take family away, like my number one thing is like preparation to play and professionalism. And like I've got a bit of a routine with regards to like what I do 2 days before a game, 3 days before a game, the day before a game, you know, reps of kicking, ice bath, cold plunge, like, you know, up to my neck, sauna, stretching.
What does the routine look like?
Yeah, so like I guess 3 days out before a game, obviously we have our main session. So obviously, you know, you want to execute your game plan for the day, for the week, and then after the session, I'll do all my kicking extras. So that'll be like all around the field, certain spots. Exact same every single week. You know, it might change here or there with regards to some of the plan for the week, but we'll go through that. And then the 2 days off before the game we have off. So I love to go into the facility. You know, I always make sure I have to get in the facility up to my neck for 5 minutes. Like there's days where I in the ice,
hands under,
yeah.
Nice, man. I like that.
I just don't like. There might be days where I'm like, I can't. Like, I don't like doing it. But I'm like, I heard this quote when I was younger. It's like, successful people have a habit of doing the things failures don't like to do. And like, if you bank up things of like, stuff that you don't like doing, but like it's helpful for you. It's like that is gold.
Man, it's like the idea of stacking days, right?
Yeah.
I heard this quote from, I think it was like Chris Williamson, maybe. It was like layers of paint that build a mountain.
Yeah.
And so every action that you do is like a small little like thin layer of paint, and you do that over like 5-10 years, and then you've got the whole mountain. That's like, that's success. That's the overnight success.
100%. But then it's like, you know, it goes to like, I always think about like the Christmas break, right? The Christmas break, every NRL player gets 2 weeks off. You know, I've got 2 weeks to go, and I could do nothing. I'll probably, if we're in the same team, I could probably not see, you could go home to your family, I'll go home to my family, I could not see you.
Yeah.
I could do nothing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know. I come back, you know, we go back to training. But then, like, if you get up and, like, you train, you know, you might do 1 session, 2 sessions. No one else is around. Like, no one, the trainer's not going to know. The teammates aren't going to know if you get up and do it or not.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, can you live with that? Like, that's what I think of. It's like, I'm doing that because, like, I want to do that for myself, my family, and my teammates. So that's the type of stuff that I guess drives, you know, those types of decisions. But I guess also, like, just going back to the routine. Yeah, obviously then day before, you know, we have captain's run. So then I like to do more, some more kicking. And then just work on like my game plan stuff with like my edge, especially, you know, Drinky and Tommy Dearden and Robbo. We speak a lot about, you know, our connection and how we want to play around the game. And then also Jeremiah Nanai, he's a big one for me, being my back rower. You know, we have a lot of conversations. So just making sure that we, tick those boxes, and then I know that it'll give me the best chance to play well.
I was going to say, why is the routine so important?
Yeah, I think it's just something that adds a bit of structure to my life, but also, you know, I think like the value it adds to like my job and being a halfback, like, you know, I'm heavily reliant on the kicking game or the structure or the organisation. So if I'm not putting in time into that, like, what am I actually doing? You know, so just knowing that I've put in the time, I think, and prepared, and knowing, like, when you get to the game, it's like you've put in the work. Yeah. You know, if you've put in the work, like, you've got no excuses. Where if you haven't put in the work to get there, it's like, well, you leave it to chance. So if you don't leave it to chance, if you've prepared, if you get in situations or scenarios in the game and you're like, yeah, prepared for this. Like, I know that when we get to this part of the game, like, this is going to happen. Or we look at here, this player is going to do this. Like, let's do this. You know, which is getting a little bit technical, but that's what I think the preparation is about.
You've obviously learned like so much in the last 14 years, even just like hearing you talk now. How did you go when you first came into the NRL? Because it was like, I imagine it can be pretty daunting, like a young kid. Like, how was that transition out of high school into an NRL system? Yeah,
I think it was, it wasn't smooth. Yeah. I didn't leave high school and go straight into the NRL. I left school, went to TAFE and worked part-time for 2 years, and then got a pre-season with the NRL and then debuted later that year. So I think having that 1 or 2 years where I was working and playing part-time, 20s, really helped me with my mindset.
Why? How?
Well, the fact that I wasn't given that. I had to work for it. So I was working and hated it.
On the tools? You on the tools?
I used to work at a steel fabrication factory in the Shire with one of my mates, and we used to go to TAFE together, and then we used to train in the afternoons, and like, I hated it. Like, it was motivation for me to be like, nah, I'm not doing this. Like, I want to play football, and I was very fixed on playing football. So, obviously, like I said, it taught me about that work and the sacrifice and the dedication. And then I think, once I made my debut, obviously, it was a dream come true and all that. I got to play for the team that I supported when I was young. I used to sit on the hill at Cronulla with my Sharks flag and watch Matty Rogers and David Peachy. And, honestly, I could tell you every Sharks player from that era.
Yeah.
Honestly, there was a game on the TV the other day that, like, the Sharks went, I was like, oh, that's this player, this. I know them all. Yeah. And now I've actually become like really good mates with like Matt Rogers and Jason Stevens and some of those old great fellas. So, but anyway, like, it was, debuting was awesome. But then I think I look back on being a young NRL player, and like I spoke about before, about the pressure I'd put on myself. And, I spoke about not being a very good person because of the pressure I did. But also, the lessons that I learned from being a young player, and then what I am now is like completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. And I think with my position as well, like being a halfback, like, a lot of the time, like the results on the halves, like with regards to our decision. And like I look back at my career and like I've won my team games, I've lost my team games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just the nature of the beast.
When you talk about pressure, do you mean the pressure to make the right decision?
Yeah.
Because you could apply pressure to so many different types. Like what is like specifically?
Yeah, I think definitely the decisions. Like there's a lot of decisions as a half has to make with regards to, game plan, especially when the games are tight.
Yeah.
And I think as I've gotten older, I've really tried to own those moments, like with my experience, understanding like what we need in certain stages of the game. Like if the game's tight, we're up by 6 with 6 to go. It's like, get in position, field goal. You know what I mean? If we're up by 8 with, 3 minutes to play and we're attacking the try line, run the ball to the corner, turn it over in the corner. Like all these decisions, it's like on the half. You're constantly having to look like at scoreboard, time, team, opposition, what are they doing, So there's like, it's not just like as simple as like one thing. It's like multiple things that are happening, which also, I might add, under extreme fatigue can sort of frazzle you a bit as well. But also I think I'll add like, there's a lot of young halves in the game these days who get the wrong probably treatment with regards to clubs wanting them to come in and just have success overnight.
Straight away,
it's a process, and like, you see some halves come in and like they'll put them in, and then all of a sudden, like 1 or 2 weeks, they'll just take them back out and then not give them a chance, and then like not re-sign them, and then so it's tough to kind of see because I was a young half and I know the pressure that you're under, and obviously we're in the business of winning, but also I think that halves you need to put a bit more time, and it's different when you're coaching a halfback, in my opinion, or a 5'8". So something that potentially might interest me later in life.
Before we move on from pressure, how much of these like learnings do you take into everyday life? Does it cross over?
Yeah, for sure. I think I think with regards to like decision making, with regards to my life away from football, like I wouldn't say that my life away from football has a lot of pressure, but also I'd say that the professionalism I try and show in my football, I try and show that at home as a dad or as a partner or as a person. So, I definitely think the two cross over, and I think the thing that it will keep me instead for the most is whenever I finish playing football and, the life of like business and real world, because I think, I've heard it a couple of times, and you might have as well. NRL like stands for not real life.
Yeah,
so.
right. That's the second time someone has said that to me this week.
Oh man,
I heard it at an NRL side conference on Tuesday.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand that. Like with regards to a few things, obviously, live a really good life with regards to lifestyle and income and things like that, which is really nice. But obviously, you want to make the most of it as well. So I think, I think. Post-football, the two will cross over for me even more.
Yeah. I do want to go into post-footy and what it looks like afterwards. But before we do that, I kind of want to dive a little bit more into your career and the journey, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, I remember we had the conversation, I think it was yesterday, we talked about, you're like, I've been through like so many parts like of adversity throughout my career, and fair enough, man. Like you do it for 14 years plus everything before that, of course. Was there a standout moment in terms of, it could have been form or injuries or potentially even moving around? Was there a moment, or could it even be a couple moments that stand out that you thought, far out, like this is actually tough? Yeah,
for sure. I think there's a couple that come to mind, and like I said yesterday to you on the phone, like, you do this job for 14 years, like I feel like I've been through it all with regards to form, injury, suspension, and, adversity. And like I sit here now and I'm like, I honestly wouldn't change a thing.
Really?
Like I wouldn't change nothing.
Why?
Because what I've gone through has taught me, and it's made me who I am today. The struggles, like the setbacks, the losses, the criticism, like it's made me who I am today, and I'm really proud of like the journey that I've had. So, going back and changing things, it's like if I did, like I might not have appreciation for some things now.
Give me an example.
I think like, I look back at, probably there's 2 instances where in 2016, we played Canberra. We finished 4th. We went down there. We played Canberra. They finished 3rd. And the last 20 minutes, like I got taken off the field in the major main final of the week.
Just got sent off? Or
yeah, just got the hook.
Oh, got the hook. Oh, yeah.
So the coach, Flano, at the time, Louis and I, like, it was really loud, and like we just weren't on the same page. Well, we had been all year. Like we won 15 straight that year, and there was a couple of balls on the ground, and a couple of miscommunication things, and then the message came out, "You're off," and I was like, "What the hell? Like, why am I off?"
It's also pretty rare that a halfback gets pulled off.
Exactly. So like in the main final of the weekend, like I'm getting taken off. I'm sitting on the bench, like there's cameras like right in my face, and then we'd go on to win the game, which was awesome. Like gave us the week off, and then the following week we played the Cowboys to get into the grand final. But I look back on it, it was hard for me because I got taken off, and there was so much tension around me, and what happened. And then we won as well, so all my teammates were like stoked, and I was like, oh, how can I not be stoked? Like our team just won. It's about the team. I remember speaking to my wife after the game and my agent. And he said to me a really good piece of advice. He said, "You rock up to recovery tomorrow with like the biggest smile on your face you've ever had, and you just go about your business normal. And then you go into Flano's office on Monday morning, and you look him dead in the eye, and you say to him, like, I understand you took me off. Like that's never going to happen ever again. With regards to my performance, I'll promise you, like, won't be in that position ever again." And I did that, and Flano was like, I could tell he was like a bit like, like that was like good. And I was like, man, that's 2 bits of advice that like I really, really am grateful for. So
man, I got goosebumps when you say that. That's wild.
And like we had the week off, and like I was just like trying to bunker down, like with regards to like the media, and like there was things out there saying like I was under pressure, I was under the pump, and then we played the Cowboys to get in the grand final, and the build up to the game was wild. Like it was about me and getting taken off, and can I deliver, a premiership, or am I the right person? Am I going to play? Like And Flano also said to me like, mate, you're our halfback. You're the guy for us. So that was really cool to hear that from him.
Mate, that's such a testament to you though, because there'd be so many crew that would be like kicking stones, like stuff this, like F you, like off the world. Would be very easy to fall into that scenario, but just to be able to bounce back and be like, nah, like you just took the right path, and it'd be easy to take either door.
Like I think, there would have been like, obviously 2 options: to be like a distraction to the team and think about myself, or think about the team. And the thing I loved about that team, looking back on it, is that we were very team first, and I had to toe the line with that as well. So a really good learning experience, and then I'd go into that Cowboys game and probably play one of the best games of my career. So
mate,
I scored a try. I had another try assist for Louis. I remember one of my first kicks, I put it up, a bomb up to Lachlan Coote. It literally landed like a metre off the try line, and Louis just tackled and smashed it straight in the end goal.
Had a coffee with Coote this morning. He didn't bring that one up.
Fella, so
one of the greats.
Yeah, but like I said, I think if I didn't go through, that adversity, like the level of focus and preparation I had to go into that game might not have been there. So, really grateful for that experience. And obviously, the following week we would go on to win the grand final.
Mate, huge. How was that? How was that celebration?
It was unreal. Yeah, it was. I think the game itself was like we won 14-12 against the Storm, who unbelievable. The game plan was basically to run at Cameron Smith. Yeah. We wanted to make him make 50 plus tackles, and I think he made like 63 or something.
Wow, man.
He's most of the season. We completed at like 92%. We just executed the game plan to perfection. Yeah. And we out Melbourne Storm the Storm, which is very hard to do traditionally. So, it was a culmination of like, I think, my whole rugby league journey once the game was over with regards to what I'd been through to got me to that situation. But then, like I said, going through it with, 17, 18 other guys who, we all lived the same life and have the same pressures and expectations about being a professional athlete. Like that was really satisfying.
Can you describe the feeling of winning a grand final? Because not many people get to do it, brother.
It is, it's one of like, absolute, like, it's a euphoric feeling. Like you almost like you're not on planet Earth. And it's hard to describe because like you think about everything you've been through. And I think, like even like when I think about like, going back to my junior club and, the decisions I made when I was a kid to play football and, it was really, really special. And, I'm really just grateful that I got to experience one. Yeah.
And then going on, obviously we're talking about like how the hard times make the good times so much better. I look at crew who I look up to and mentors and those role models, and all of those guys and girls, they've gone through exactly the same thing. Like they've gone through so much hard stuff, and it's like cliche, like pressure builds diamonds, right? And hard things, and you've got to learn from it. It's like, why would you go through all this hard shit if you're not going to learn from it? In terms of guys and girls who you look up to, like, is there anyone that you lean on or that you look up to at all?
Yeah, I think, like I spoke about before, that the main one for me when I was younger was definitely like Luke Lewis.
He's also looking jacked, by the way.
He's so bloody
He's
jacked.
so strong, man.
I always say to him every time I see him, Groover, what program are you on? He's like, he loves like the bodybuilding stuff. Have a look at it. Search him up, Luke Lewis. He's probably looking fitter now than he was when he was
100%. It's probably because he's not getting bashed every week. It's my favourite thing about finishing footy. Yeah.
But I guess, on the back of the story I just mentioned about, going off in Canberra, the next day, like, guess who was on my doorstep, like, the next morning? Like, it was Louis.
Really?
You know what I mean? He rocked up and came over my house and was just like, man, I just wanted to come. He came over my house, had a coffee, and just was like, man, I just wanted to check in on you. And, I was like, man, that is like, it means like the world to me. So, he was someone I really looked up to with the way he lived his life. He was a role model, like, for younger guys like myself, the way he was as a husband, a father. Like, it was like everything, like, he was successful with his decisions away from football with regards to his investment, setting up his family for success post-football. Even now, like, his life post-football, like, the stuff he does. So he was probably, the big one.
But that was, and that for him to rock up on your doorstep, it's like, it just shows about you don't have to say much, but even just like being there. Like, like I talk about, like, even just having a good support network around you or having good crew around you, like, that's so important. Like, even, we obviously, like, we have some wild conversations on this podcast, and a lot of the questions is like, who do you lean on? Like, what are some things that you do to help your mental health and stuff like that? And so a common theme is just like, it's not about what you say, it's just about being there.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely attest to that. I think, in hard times, like, I guess by just showing up and supporting and, like, when Louis came over, like, he just, we didn't really speak too much about the game at all. It was just like, man, like, how you going? What are you up to? You know what I mean? Like, but like I said, him just being there was pretty huge for me. So it taught me a lesson with regards to now that I'm like, an older player, what I can do for some of our younger guys, and the lessons that guys like Louis and Michael Ennis taught me about being an experienced, a veteran in the game, about, what can you pass on and what legacy, I guess, can you leave a mark on with some of the young guys coming through.
What are some of the things that you want to pass down? Because I look at a few of the boys that we used to knock around with, like when I was coming through, like Ruben and Tommy Dearden, like another Palm Beach boy, Palm Beach Crumbin boy, which we love. But what are some of the things that you want to pass down? Yeah,
I think the biggest one, I guess, with regards to that was probably when I first got to Townsville, Tommy Dearden. He'd just kind of been here for 6 months, came up mid-season from the Broncos and debuted at a really young age and had the weight of the world on his shoulders, had a lot of expectation, a lot of pressure on himself, unwarranted pressure, I might add, like with regards to being thrown in at a very young age in an unsuccessful team, and then came here and, I just wanted to help Tommy. Like, I knew what type of player, and I straight away saw the work ethic that he had, and I was like, man, this kid's work ethic is going to take him to like high places. And he just worked and worked and worked at his game. And I jumped in and would offer him advice, you know, on things and scenarios and situations in the game, but then also like away from football with regards to his mindset. And the growth that he has shown over the past 2.5 years has been phenomenal.
Pretty cool to watch, hey?
Oh man, it's probably one of the most favourite things I've been able to see in my career is the growth of him, and it's all because of the work he's put in. And even now, like Tommy and Rubes are the captains of the team and doing a tremendous job. And I speak to them about leadership and ideas like a lot. And those guys are doing a tremendous job, and it's just great to see. Like I'm so proud of them as mates and as teammates. So. The sky's the limit for both.
But it'd be so cool to have guys like yourself and Jace and some of the older boys around them, right? Because that's just going to bring them to the next level. Like, look at what he's done, or both of them have done in the last couple of years. Even talking to Rubes, when we did a podcast yesterday, he was just like, he had so much adversity at the start of his year, back-to-back ACLs, like, wanted to play grade, would try and come back, did it again, like, and then he's like, same as what you said, he's like, man, I wouldn't change any of that because it just led to the person I am today, and having good role models and good crew around you, brother, it's so important.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, it's that adversity and that setback that, just creates like, you know, like mindfulness, appreciation, but also work ethic and drive and motivation. Yeah. Like without setback and without failure, like who would you be? Like what lessons would you learn? So those two have had multiple setbacks, and they will over the next 10 years in their careers. Like Tommy Dearden's 10 years younger than me.
Man, so when you made your debut, he was like 8 years old or something.
Like it's wild, mate. I'm 10 years older than Tommy, and like we're just standing there like talking about the game or talking about whatever, and I'm like, then I walk away and I'm like, man, like I'm 10 years older than Tommy. So like it's but you wouldn't know, like with regards to our relationship, like the connection that I have with Tom on the field is like I've only ever had that probably with Jimmy Maloney. Yeah. And we won a comp together, but Tom and I are very different style players, but also we always talk about like see the same thing, do the same thing, and it doesn't necessarily, we don't need to say anything, but it's just like, you know, like give you a bit of a look, and it's like, I'm coming, or I'll be here, or you get there. Yeah. So that stuff, you know, takes time, but I guess like on the back of what I said before, I'm just so proud of both of them as a friend. I
love watching people who are willing to work hard, because it's like anything that's worthwhile in life isn't easy. If it was easy, fucking everyone would be doing it. And like you look at all the hard work that you've put in the last 14 years, plus all the years that you would have put in before that when you're playing junior footy. Like, mate, that's a pretty wild career, and you've took so many learnings out of it. I'm really keen to hear what you want to do next, because I know whatever happens next and whatever happens life after footy, I know you're going to go all in. What does life after footy look like? And probably before that, are you nervous? Because it's obviously coming to the back end.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I'd probably say like I'm excited. And like at the moment, like I'm off contract now, so I'm like exploring all my options for next year and negotiating with what I want to do. And at this stage of where I'm at, it's definitely like my intention to play on next year, and I'm confident that that'll sort itself out. But I guess with regards to like post football, like I feel like I've been planning for this for like 4-5 years.
Really?
Like in my late 20s, like I was talking about retirement and what I want to do in post football. And I think like because I've got things outside of football that I'm interested in, like I have tried a few things that I know like what I want to do. And so I'm excited about the opportunities that are out there, but also like it's going to be on the back of the stuff we spoke about with work. Like I'll go from like being a football player and, you know, being like comfortable with with regards to like my environment of who I am, going into like a foreign environment that's not a footballer, but I definitely want to join, like I want to work in the media. I want to work in sports media. I want to work on TV. I want to work on the radio. I want to be a part of that media with regards to commentary or talking about sports, and not just rugby league. Like I love all sport. I love golf. I love tennis, cricket. I feel like I could sit on a panel and talk about all sports, anything that's trending in the world right now.
Yeah.
All sports probably except like soccer. Like I don't know EPL that much, but with everything else, like I feel like I'm across it all. And I'm a big sports fan. So I think, I definitely see myself working in the media, but then also creating more content on YouTube for sure. Like would definitely like to get my podcast back with more consistently. What that looks like, whether it's I guess interviewing players or more like a sports show, or I've got some ideas that I've kind of been thinking about for like the last couple of years I've written down. And I've also written I've written a business plan. I've written things about like start opening my own factory or office, creating my own content, my own TV shows, selling TV shows to like Fox, creating original content, ideas like that. So I think the biggest thing is like it's all out there. It's all possible. Yeah. Like it is possible, and it'll be hard work, and it'll be different because like the football life is something that I'm very used to. I'm used to the lifestyle of football, and but it's not real life. Like
it's a little bubble, man.
It is,
but it's also like it's so cool to see how excited you are. Like I obviously have a lot of catch ups with past players, like my role at the RPA. Like I sit in the past player and transition program, and it's cool when you have sit down catch ups with past players or guys who are about to transition out. When they have that energy about a certain topic, it's like that's when you know they're kind of in a flow, and you don't worry about them less, but you kind of do almost, because you know that they're going to be curious and they're going to be striving. I think curiosity is probably one of the greatest traits that you can have
without a doubt
before coming into your retirement.
I think as well, like I spoke about like having or planning or thinking about like from my late 20s. Like I never knew I'd still be playing now. Like I'm 33 years old. Like I didn't think that when I was 20. But I guess I'm also like I know that there's so much life to live like after football, and I've seen players who have had amazing careers, earned amazing money, and finished football, and just like flopped, haven't looked after themselves mentally, haven't looked after themselves financially. And I was like, I made a decision at a younger age during my career that I am not going to do that. I am going to invest my money. I'm going to look after my money. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to invest in the future of setting up my family, and then providing my family a safe space to like live and just live the best life we can, and then thrive in post football. Like I said, I'm excited about like what's out there, and there's a lot of things about like football that I will definitely miss. But there's things that I'm like, oh man, I won't miss that. And I'm sure you're probably thinking the same.
Mate, when I finished up footy, I was like, oh my God, I don't have to do a pre-season. Don't have to do any of that.
And that's why, like, don't get me wrong, like at this stage right now where I'm at, like I'm still very much in love with that. Like I'm like, could I do it like at the time, like the preseason we just finished, like I'm like, man, I hate this. But then right now it's like, if you ask me, could I do another preseason? Hell yeah, I could. Like hell yeah, I've still got that drive, and that's why I want to still play. And then you're a long time retired when you do finish. But also, like I said, the thought of transitioning into post football, it excites me because there's so much opportunity out there. I know if I have the same work ethic that I've had throughout my sporting career, success will come my way post-football.
And there's so much life to live after it. I love what you said there, man, because I remember there's certain guys who I really look up to, specifically in the business space, and they might be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're like, Keegs, I've got another decade.
Yeah.
I've got another 10, 20 years of work. Like, I don't ever want to stop working, and they've still got that energy. And I was like, that's where I want to sit. I was like, that's what I want to, that's what we were talking about before. Like everything that we're doing now, we want to do for minimum that. But you're in such a fortunate position where, as shit as it is to say, being in professional sport, it gives you such a leg up when you come outside of sport, and so many players don't quite understand that. But use that to your leverage, but also you can use it for good, use it bad, use it however you want. But like, you're such an influential person in the community. So that's why we have this podcast, man. Like
Yeah.
the way you come on board today and like talk about balance, like overcoming setbacks, having tough conversations, dealing with pressure, the balance between family and life. It's like there's so many crew out there looking up to you, where it's just like, fuck, if Chad can talk about it, and if he's going through it, then it's normal and it's fine for me. So, and it puts you in such a really cool position. That's why I love that you're going down the content space, because you can push those messages, those really great positive messages out there. Yeah,
I think like you want to make the most of like your position and also like your relationships as well. And I think, you know, in football, like the thing that I'm so grateful for is like the people I've met, the relationships I've made, and the experiences I've had. And, you know, there's players like, and you're probably the same, like you could say every single NRL player's name in the competition. You don't necessarily like know them all, but like if you like walk past like, I don't know, an NRL player that you don't actually know, but you knew of them, like, you know, you could say, hey man, like, you know, what's happening? Like,
and have a good conversation.
Yeah, how's training? Like, how you been? Like, oh, you're playing really well at the moment or whatever. And then it's like, yeah man, like see you later. And I think like, you know, even just like being able to like connect, and then like, you know, for us, for example, like when you just messaged me and said, you know, let's do a potty, like, for sure, man. You know, like let's connect. Like, you know, we've got a similar background. So I think, you know, being able to sort of leverage off your position and the people you've met is extremely important in the game. But then also like post football, like why don't we help each other out, like with regards to what we want to do, and I think that, you know, probably has space for improvement. But also it's good to see that some players are doing that really well. That's
what we want to do in like, excuse me, in the past player space, where it's like, there's no reason why someone has to go down for someone else to go up. It's like, how can we lift everyone up? And that's why we want to do all these connection events. Like that's why I'm here in Townsville. We've got a player connection event tomorrow where we'll just do a gym session and then go have brekkie. Easy as that. But then like the boys will get around each other. You get to see what other people are doing. And we do it in all regions around Australia. And it's like, how do we help people? Guys might like, the other week before Magic Round, we went to David Mead's restaurant because he's got a restaurant in Brizzy. And so we're like, okay, let's support him. Who else has other like businesses that we can support? Like that's always the play. But then I always look at people who are listening to try and take like takeaways from it. It's like, you don't need to just have a relationship with someone to make a connection. It might be like 1 or 2 degrees off, like, or 1 to 2 degrees away from that person. So if you know someone, just say, hey man, like, would you mind doing an intro? Think about that all the time, or like, this is what I'm trying to do. And that's partly, to be honest, everyone that's come on this podcast now has been mates, or I've met them along the way. But there's going to get to a point where I'm like, oh, actually, I want to talk to such and such, or I want to talk to such and such. And so it'll be like, perfect example, talking to KP last night. I was just like, hey man, would you mind doing an intro with this person? I'm not going to say it because I don't know if I were going to get it or not. but I was just like, and he's just like, and I literally was like, man, do you reckon he'd be up for a potty? And he's just like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I'll just ask him. And so that's like that. And you apply that to anything else you want to do.
Well, I think like putting yourself out there as well. You know, you're putting yourself out there because of things that you're passionate about. And I think it's the same as like, you know, you talk about some of the content I make. It's like I'm happy to put myself out there, you know, because I am so comfortable with like who I am.
Yeah.
Like I don't need validation or anything from anyone else to say who I am. I'm very comfortable with the life I live, who I am as a person, who I am as a football player. Like, you know, that's why I want to share things about my life and put it out there. So,
did you always have that though, or is that learned? Because you know, when you come into an NRL environment, like it's pretty daunting.
Yeah.
Like me and Paddy spoke about that. Like in our potty that we did, it's like even when I came into Bronx, I was like, I didn't say a word for the first year.
Yeah.
I don't reckon I truly like not loved the person I was, but like I didn't think I was like super truly authentic until I was about like mid-20s, or not authentic, just feeling comfortable in myself. Like I feel very confident to be who I am now, but that's off the back of like years of lived experience.
Yeah.
Like how do you reckon you've got there?
Yeah, I think definitely probably like, you know, later in my 20s, like 26, 27, like it took a while for me to kind of get there, like probably just before halfway in my career. You know, probably having success as a player, probably validated, I guess, you know, making it in the NRL, having played like, you know, at that stage during my career, like over 100 NRL games, and, you know, being an NRL player, that probably kind of validated things a bit more, I would say. It's probably hard to come straight in and probably just putting yourself out there and doing it when you kind of just want to focus on the work and getting yourself, I guess, cemented as an NRL player. But I think it definitely comes with like more understanding who you are as a person as you grow older. Man,
being a dad, what's it like? Like obviously we've touched on it, but what are the big things that you want to pass down to your kids, do you think?
I think the biggest one is I just want them to be themselves. Like they're going to have probably challenges that I never had to face when I was a kid with regards to my family is a very humble family. Like I said, my dad worked really, really hard. Mum was a stay-at-home mum when I was younger. My kids, especially my son, he's got a dad that plays NRL, that's played NRL. So, I don't push football onto my children. I don't push football onto my son. I want him to be his own man. And like people always ask me, is Kyrie going to play football? And I'm like, he'll play football if he wants to, man. Like it's like I loved football as a kid, but he might. And he might not. So I think the biggest thing is I just want to teach them is to be themselves, but also like be good people, like very hard on them with regards to manners and being kind. But I'm excited about like the life ahead with them, and like I know it's going to be busy. Like I've got 4 kids, and like there's going to be like a lot of challenges and highs and lows, but also just the experience of like being able to live life with them and watch them grow. And they've come so far in I guess their short lives so far, but it just excites me to spend more time with them, especially post-football.
Is there anything that you're nervous about?
I've got 3 daughters, so obviously, you kind of think about, them and protecting them as much as I can. And, I guess like the big ones is obviously when they turn 18, they can go out and, the importance of having a good friendship or support network, which we've sort of touched on. I was very lucky that at 5 years old, I became mates for life with some of, my best mates through football. Yeah. So I really want my kids to have like really good friendship circles and be really close friends and hanging out with them all the time, and for their friends to have their backs and for them to have their friends' backs. Because I think that, that's the recipe for like a good childhood, to have really good friends. So that's something that I really hope that they can find.
I obviously don't have kids, so I can't talk on the topic at all, but I imagine there's only probably so much that you can do as a parent until like you get to the point where like what circles they're knocking around with. And I have no idea, but imagine like the circles and what school they go to and what clubs they hang out with, like that would be such a huge contributor to what type of person they're going to be growing up.
Of course. Yeah, without a doubt. Like I think there's so many scenarios you play in your head of them as they get older. You know what I mean? That's why I said like you just want to protect them. And at some stage, like I hope and my wife, like we hope that we've taught them the skills that they need to handle certain situations, because when you think about the situations you went through as a kid, and like as you grow older, you get become a teenager, like you're 16, 17, like there's guys that are 18, like, that type of age, then, who you hang around with. And then if you're like, if these kids are doing something and then you're not doing it and you're getting bullied for not doing it. Yeah. And like, I copped that when I was younger. Like I never drank like when I was 16 or 17, and like the kids at school that used to underage drink, like would give it to me. Yeah. And I just be like, man, like, I want to play football, like, and it was like used to get like teased about it, but it's like look where I am now, like
100%.
So,
but like, you could even take that scenario, but then put it into everyday life now. Like even the circles, like I've like 8 months. No, I haven't had a drink for 8 months. Doing like a little year challenge of like not drinking. Little gap year. I was like, well, mate, I've had enough head knocks. So I need to give my head a bit of a break. But like the biggest thing was just like, I wonder how like my mates are gonna go, because to be honest, like I enjoy having a drink. Like I like having a drink. A lot of my mates do the same. But then it was funny when I said it, and then like the first month that I went sober, I had like 3 weddings and 2 bucks parties, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to not go out. Like, I'm not going to not do that. So we still go out, still have fun. I was wondering how they were going to do it, how they were going to go. And I just think I'm so lucky to have the best mates in the world, because all of them, like, they didn't give a shit. Like they're like, mate, it's sick that you're still. I was like, it's like 1 a.m. Like, what are you still doing? And like, obviously they'll take the piss. Like, mate, go to bed. And I'm like, mate, I'm not leaving.
You do well to stay up at 1 a.m. without having
couple Red Bulls. couple. I was shaking by the end of the night. But that's what I mean. I was like, it's it's a testament to like the amount, like the crew that you surround yourself with. Like, yeah, I'm super fortunate, and I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah,
man.
I think like you hear that. What's that saying? Like you're the average of the top 4 or 5 people you hang around with the most.
Yeah, man.
And I think that like resonates a lot with me. With my friends from back home, and my friends from back home, like my best mates, like they're not professional sportsmen. They understand that the decisions that I make are completely different to them.
Yeah.
The life I live is completely different to them. What I do, they probably think is, different, could be a bit different, but they respect what I do with regards to like, training or the way that I eat or what I do, how I look after myself. And, they're not professional athletes, but they're just so supportive. You know what I mean? So having that circle of support, whether it's family or friends, is so important.
Mate, huge. Brother, I think we're ticking over an hour. Far out, that flew. Man, I've enjoyed this conversation so much today, and I'm super appreciative. Before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we finish?
No, man, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think, really grateful for the opportunity to come on. I think it's great to see past players just killing it post-football and thriving. I think you're one of them who's probably standing out at the moment, mate. So, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and congrats on what you've been up to.
Mate, thank you. And I appreciate that. And to be honest, I love looking back and watching your career unfold. Like, obviously, I was a bit younger when you were making your debut, brother. So it's cool to see the whole transition. And mate, while I love watching your footy, I'm more probably so excited to watch how you're going to go after footy, because, brother, I think it's going to be a cracker. So, mate, thank you again for coming on.
No worries, anytime.